The Rare Spike Collar came out in 2011, only a few months after the trading system did in the same year. So they've always been kind of related to each other. As the game evolved, so did the impact that spikes had on the Animal Jam economy. Even today, they are so intertwined with trading that they're almost considered a currency of sorts in the Animal Jam economy besides, gems and diamonds. So what exactly is happening with spikes right now? Why are they going up so quickly? And why is pink specifically being exponentially more rare than it once was? Let's figure this out. So spikes have been recently really rapidly increasing in price, and this is unusual. Usually spikes have been almost in the same spot worthwise for as long as trading existed in this game. They've kind of written a whole niche in their way. Okay, yeah, there's this certain amount of den betas, because we're talking about diamonds today. It's not exactly the same, but there's this certain amount of den betas equals this spike, and people never really fought that. It just kind of became the norm over many years, and people just got used to it. So now recently, it seems that norm has been slowly breaking, and people have been constantly increasing their spike prices in shops, leading to the prices of the spikes themselves going up and up and up. Well, there's a few reasons why this probably happened. The main reason why I guess is because of spikes not being in adventures anymore. Probably 99% of spikes in the game have been won from the Forgotten Desert over the 8 years or so that the spikes were in there. For anyone that was living under a rock for 3 years or so, spikes are not in the Forgotten Desert anymore. The wristbands are, but not the collars. It's just weird to think about that, but yeah, that's the reality we live in. So as a result of that, spikes have become a limited resource that only goes down over time because people do recycle them. It's not common, but people do recycle them. But people aren't winning them besides the few that get given out in Gem Bastard contests, but that doesn't really happen enough to really impact it that much in comparison to, people winning spikes constantly in the Forgotten Desert and other adventures. I made a special graph that you'll see in a little bit, almost similar to the graph I made in a previous similar video about the Animal Jam economy imploding. By the way, I'm very impressed on how that video did. I did not expect it to do that well, so thank you all for the support on that. What really is happening with spikes right now, and let's try to figure out what, and if there is a pattern, why it's happening. Before I go into the graph, I'm going to show this little blog post from the Item Worth Wiki shown me. This is a little bit of background information on what might be happening with pink longs and the spike economy in general. I will link this in the description if you want to read it. It's pretty cool, pretty well done as well. I've been kind of out of this for as long as this has happened, so I don't know the full history of it, so this is actually really helpful for me. Remember in that previous video that I mentioned a little while ago, I was talking about pink longs being hoarded, and it seems like it started in late 2023 to 2024. It's not as recent as you think, although obviously the main damage has happened within the past 3 months. You'll see in a little bit that there have been so many edits to the wiki that it's almost as much as the rest of the page's entire history. So you can see here that they were 330 diamonds in December of 2023, and have stayed pretty much in the same realm for about a year. In February of 2025, there was a poll trying to measure blue longs, because blue longs for the longest time were considered a good long, but no one accepted them. Everyone said, trade me 2 good longs, no blue. So they made a poll, and people were also trying to somehow rope pink longs into that poll, because pink longs were by that point known to be hoarded, but weren't as bad as obviously how it is now. That poll failed, but this poll, they had a second one, and that one did work, making blue a decent long, but the order did not change. But obviously people started selling the pink longs for more and more, that the order would eventually have to change. Getting them somehow jumping purple and red, and then eventually jumping black longs right now, which is really weird. Here are all of the spike diamond worth updates from November 2021 all the way to, as of recording yesterday, May 5th, 2025. These are all the diamond worths of all the long spike collars, and obviously they have gotten much more expensive in the 4 years that they've been tracking this. There was a little bit of time where they took diamonds off the page, but then added them back on, obviously. I originally had this recorded on April 22nd and didn't edit it until a week later, and I noticed that it gotten so bad that especially pink long prices in just a week went up 500 diamonds that I had to basically re-record my whole video, which is what I'm doing right now. Well, it's not all for nothing. That video, I had some pretty bad audio, so what exactly is happening with spikes right now? Hopefully this one's a little bit better when it comes to that. As I was saying, spike worths are right here, and they go off the Animal Jam Item Worth Wiki. So you can notice here that, well, these are all just 2025 edits of the spike collar page. That is basically the same number of edits as the whole rest of the page's diamonds worth the other 3 years. That's how bad this situation has become. They've had to edit it like 20 times in 4 months, which is insane. You can see here that quite a lot of these have kind of stabilized, mostly because of the shop limit being 500 diamonds. So purple longs and red longs are listed at the same amount, only because if the shop limit went up to 1,000, for example, they'd probably be at 600 or 700 or something right now. But people don't obviously want to sell over the shop limit. That's not something I ever recommend. So that's why they're stuck at 500. And let's look over at our lovely graph here to show the absurdity of the rising prices and the economy of spikes in general. All right, so we look at this and you might say, oh, that's not that bad. They all look like they rose the same. Well, yeah, if I cut off the graph at March 2025, it would look kind of bleak, but overall, not that bad. But then you look at the pink long right here, and, that's interesting. So let's talk about a few things on this graph. First here, you can see that spike values have been rising slowly over time. Main reason why is, of course, they're not in the Forgotten Desert anymore. Probably around here is when they stopped being in the Forgotten Desert. So after that, they've only rose in value over time. They plateaued here, but then went down because of Wild Weekends. At Wild Weekends, you need diamonds, so you need a lot of diamonds, especially if you want to sell the items later on. So you got to buy them in bulk. So you got to trade down some of your spikes to get more in the future. Honestly, the spikes have been a little lower than expected for a decent amount of time until now, when they're rising again. Justifiably? I don't know. Right now, people have been selling their spikes for a lot of diamonds. Orange long has been going for 300 in comparison to the 200 or less that it's been throughout the rest of the spike's history the past 4 years. With the numbers being visualized in a graph, you could also see a few different interesting things that you would probably not really look at with only numbers. The main thing here is how blue was substantially worth more than pink for a long time. But then eventually they kind of became even, and it kind of danced back and forth who's worth more in diamonds or not. And eventually then became like completely even in diamond worth for a while. And obviously recently they have somehow shot up to even past the black line worth, which is absurd. I don't know why it's happening besides hoarders. That's the only way that I could really explain it. Otherwise, I have no clue. But yeah, that's just the interesting thing about graphs. If I were to wait another week, this line here would probably be even higher. But I hope that it goes down one day so I can come back to this graph and see just a peak, a giant mountain. And people are like, what on earth happened? That'd be funny, okay? That would be really funny. I cannot predict the future, so I'm not sure what's gonna happen. So weird. Especially that it's only been in 3 or so months. Now, keep in mind that one popular way people were using spikes to earn profit with diamonds was they had a black long. They traded down their black long for either 2 red longs or 4 bad longs, either orange or green. And then they sell those longs for diamonds, usually yielding them a net profit in the end. Rinse and repeat, buy a black long for diamonds, and rinse and repeat. So overall, they've been making a lot of diamonds in this way, and so many people have been doing it. It's kind of been the norm as well, leading to a partial reason why the whole spike economy has been rising so much. That is definitely not the only reason, especially with pink longs. It's so unprecedented, and there's no forming pattern really between them. The only pattern that existed, if you saw on that graph, was that pink was going to overtake blue, but otherwise no other signs that pink was going to become rarer than a black long ever existed, meaning that this is definitely artificial in some way. And personally, I'm not going to trade for any pink longs. If I get a pink long in a trade, even though I haven't been trading recently, I'm going to decline it because I still think of them as the same decent long worth that they were 3 months ago. I'm not stuck in the past, okay? Normally, these spikes would never change 4x in value in only 3 months. That is just not normal whatsoever. So I'm not going to take the risk, and I'm not going to take a spike that is that unstable. I mean, it's so unstable that if you go onto the wiki page right now, you'll see that they put a little disclaimer on the pink long and separate it from the other spikes because it doesn't fit into the normal worth hierarchy anymore. That's how bad it has been. But yeah, it's just really weird. Not something that I've ever seen, and the fact that I had to re-record this video because all my information was outdated is the icing on the cake. That's just how bad it is. I hope that Wild Weekends coming soon will alleviate some of the pain caused from these pink longs and spikes in general rising so much. I hope that people, kind of wake up and see, wait, why am I buying this item for more than a black long, which has always been the rarest for the game's whole run. Yeah, I think that hopefully that will happen. If you like my content, then why not subscribe? And with that, this is Brad Stormer, storming out.